Welcome to CTO Think, a podcast about leadership, product development, and tech decisions between two recovering chief technology officers. Here are your hosts, Don Vandemark and Randy Burgess.
Hey, Don, it's been a while. What's going on?
Yeah, so that's really what's been going on I've been away from the house. So let's see. I left the house to go to South Dakota on June 19th, and here it is, July 14th. So in almost a month, I was probably home 6 days. Went to South Dakota for a week, did an officiating conference up there, tied it together with, a family vacation, seeing Mount Rushmore and things like that, which was fine. Mount Rushmore was good. The Crazy Horse Memorial, which is a little lesser known. It's actually a mountain carving in progress. So it was actually fascinating to see. You've got the Crazy Horse's face out in the mountain already, but they've got the whole rendering of him, pointing and on a horse, and they're showing you everything it's gonna be. But they've been at it, 50 years. Yeah. So it's a question of when. But I find that utterly fascinating that you go back in 50 years and it might be completely different. Then came home for a couple days, and then over July 4th, we did a board game conference locally, which sounds weird, but it's actually great because there's a library of games that you may never purchase, but you get to check out and try.
Yeah.
So that's why we do it is for that. And we get a bunch of friends together, and it's actually, it's a good relaxing weekend. I told work not to bother me at all. Cause it was July 4th weekend. I'm like, we're not open. Yeah. So if there's an emergency, somebody will deal with it and we'll go for there. So I was able to disconnect for a while, and then I turned around, got home Sunday, flew out Monday to Los Angeles to go to a convention in Long Beach for Aspire EDU. So got back Friday, and finally I can relax. Finally, I'm home for a little while, and that it's one of those things where you travel that much, you're finally like, okay, can I just rest for a little while?
Yeah.
I get it. Yeah. What's going on with you?
Oh, so I started the new gig at Hierology. Yep. Been in the depths of learning a new language. We talked about this on This Old App. Learning Go, learning service-oriented architecture, learning how to work, I'm learning a lot more agile management than I've ever learned before, because they have a pretty, I would call it a well-oiled engineering team of about 30 people, all remote. So I would say from a leadership and management standpoint of running a remote team, I'm learning a ton of stuff. Sure. Something that we should talk about in the future. They use a system called EOS. It's called the Entrepreneurship Operating System. It's one of those, like someone wrote a book or a series of books, and they do trainings and stuff. And it's the way that you can run a growing startup or a growing organization. And I gotta say, I like it. I think it makes things very clear from a goal setting standpoint, from the values of the company standpoint. So that's definitely something we can talk about. So I'm learning about that. I mean, I've put together teams. I've run the whole tech operation for small companies. So I've done all these things, but I've never done them on the scale that Hierology is at. And so I'm learning a ton of stuff about how do you organize 30 people to work well together and be efficient together. And that is actually really exciting to be a part of and see it the way it's working here. So I've been doing that. This is my first summer living in Lake Quivira, Kansas. And people said, hey, the summer is what you live for here. And they are right, because you may have been traveling, but as soon as Friday hits, I feel like I'm on vacation for the next 2 days. And then I just basically turn around and go, work in my office at home. But outside our house is just a vacation, a lake vacation.
Sure.
And that's different. Like I've never really had that. It's so easy of access. So,
Right.
so yeah, it's been a mix of learning a new job and all the stresses and new stuff and energy that comes with that. And then on the flip side, hey, I'm going to go and laze away on the lake for the next 2 days. And I've done that the last 4 weeks, it seems. 4th of July is like the biggest holiday here. So the whole city was packed with people, and just, that was fun. We had a lot of family visit and all that good stuff. And so next week, I'm heading into Chicago. We do an on-site where we bring the entire engineering team, fly them in, and we all work with the rest of the company that is on-site in Chicago. And so I have no idea what's in store. I have lots of things set up for meetings and like a whirly ball type of team kind of just, outings and stuff like that. So that's what I'm looking forward to, is meeting the people that I've been chatting with through Slack and stuff like that. So yeah, that's but
we've got to stop you on whirly ball there, because you know what whirly ball is, I know what whirly ball is, but we have to educate the world for those who don't know what whirly ball is.
It's a mix of is it Jai-Lai? Is that what you call it? Is that the
Jai-Lai?
It's a mix of Jai-Lai, lacrosse, and bumper cars.
It's awesome. I love
it. And you've got this little cup handler. You have a wiffle ball type ball. You've got goals on either end of this court. You've got bumper cars, and you're basically playing this like Jai-Lai soccer in a bumper car thing. Alcohol is almost always involved. You can't really hurt anybody that I can remember. We used to play.
I've T-boned people pretty well in that game.
Yeah, well, that's part of the point. And so that's basically it. But it's one of those things where anybody can play. You don't have to be like an athlete or something. Apparently, there's someone on my team that is very tall. I want to see what his wingspan advantage is in this type of game. But I don't know if I don't know if his legs will fit in the bumper car, so that might be the downfall. But so that's what we're aiming to do, and I'm looking forward to meeting some new folks that it was always, I've never started it with a company that was 100% remote in the sense of the engineering team. So I can kind of see the value of bringing everybody in for at least, 1 or 2 weeks a year just to keep that culture going and stuff. So, so that's what's on my agenda. That's what's been going on. And so I admit that and this is probably a good thing, I have been looking at Twitter less over the last few weeks. I've been really focused on the new gig. But nothing, it seems like within my circle of Twitter lists and people I follow, some person, what's their name? Shakar Karani is the way I'm going to pronounce it. I have no idea who he is. Maybe he's famous, some startup person, investor. The only company I know on his list of investments is BrowserStack. He basically made a post, a series, one of those like Twitter lists of several tweets tied together regarding the 10x, the 10 times engineer.
Sure.
This is a concept I've heard forever. Before I make any comments, what do you think? Like, I can read the tweet. Basically, the first tweet is, 10 times engineers. Founders, if you ever come across this rare breed of engineers, grab them. If you have a 10 times engineer as part of your first few engineers, you increase the odds of your startup success significantly. Okay, here's a tough question. How do you spot a 10 times engineer?
Yeah. That's that. It's okay. So I don't want to say he's categorically wrong. So I'm going to hedge just a touch. I'm not going to say he's categorically wrong, because what he's saying is, if you find one, grab them. So I think there are a ton of caveats there, but we'll get into the caveats. The benefit is, if you've got somebody who's really sharp and is really good at developing, yeah, that's going to accelerate your startup, the building of your software. Now let's get into the caveats. So I brushed on the positive of it, but let's get into the caveats.
But wait, let's define a 10 times engineer in your mind first.
Okay.
What is the definition of a 10 times engineer?
Oh, I'm going to be very, very simplistic about it. And I'm going to be, it's somebody who's got a good amount of experience, who can visualize, the way to code a problem faster than your average engineer, and who's just got a wealth of knowledge in his, either in his head or at his disposal, to where any problem presented to them is resolved much quicker than others. I'm going to go there. What's your definition?
10 times engineer in my world, that as best as I can understand other people defining it, is someone that they have a really good short-term and long-term memory. So they remember everything about a language, a coding language. They understand the coding paradigms pretty well, like in the sense of the various ways that software development is done across all sorts of languages. They are extremely bright and can build almost anything you need a solution to by themselves. They're really fast. Those are all the positives. Like they stand out amongst your team about how bright they are, and their ability to solve software problems quickly.
Right.
Out of the, I want to say I know 4 people that I would put in that category. And I would probably only hire 2 of them to work with other people.
Yeah, I would say I would go there. I'd say I probably know roughly 4, and each of the 4 has, everybody has a different personality.
Yeah.
But each of the 4 has personality, quirks that need to be dealt with. So, it's a question of, do they fit in your team as well?
Yeah. So now we've defined the 10 times engineer. Go into your caveat part.
So the caveats are really what I was saying, which is they've got to fit in your team. So the tweet says when you're starting up. So that could be a statement that's your first one. And if it's your first one, if that person fits in with the founder, then you're going to get stuff done. But as the team grows, you starting to get into the personality quirks, and is there a fit?
Yeah.
There are some 10x engineers that they know everything, and they know everything. So they tend to not have, I'm being generalistic, but some of the caveats are they have to be willing to teach, willing to exchange information with the team. And that's important as the team grows. They have to be willing to take direction, which is the flip side. They tend to do a lot of good stuff, so they tend to not want to take direction. Those are two off the top of my head. What else do you have?
Well, they lack empathy for people. I mean, that's all I got. That's like the bold, flat line. Now, actually, I know 6 people. I've counted while you were talking. I know 6 people I consider 10 times engineers. 2 of them I would work with a group of people. The other ones, I'd be like, I'm going to give you some problems, but I don't need your caustic approach to higher than thou opinions of everyone else's code and approach to be bleeding into my culture. But the 2 people that are that I consider 10x they have empathy for other people. They get along well with others. One is a manager of people, and the other, I don't know that they want to be a manager, but so easy to work with and so extremely talented. And so for those 2 folks, right. I'm like, I'm not going to put them, they're 10 times, but I'm not going to shove them into that negative category which Twitter is going after violently.
Right.
I mean, if you think about it, Google built themselves upon the backs of 10 times folks. Like,
sure.
And Amazon does too. And you can't really knock what they've built. Like, they have built billion-dollar effective technology entities on the backs of this aim for 10 times engineers. I think it's about, yes, there's now this generalization about that type of individual and how it works in a startup. And so, like, the comments that Mr. Karani made, the first thing he said of how to spot a 10 times engineer is 10 times engineers hate meetings. Well, shit, I guess I'm a 20 times engineer because I hate meetings too. So, wow, I just nailed the first one. Like, I'm not a 10 times engineer. But sure, but maybe hey, founders, reduce the meetings, period. Like,
yeah,
that's such a one. Dumb way to start it's not a great way to start how do you spot one? Oh, do they like meetings?
Right.
If a developer likes meetings, you have a manager. Like, that's what you're hiring.
Right.
But even then, it's like, that's just a weird start. Timings in the office for the 10 times engineer is highly irregular. Well, okay. Again, I don't see that as necessarily a great trait for anybody that's working with a team. Like, that is not you can't look at someone and go, oh, do you work a 9 to 5? Well, maybe you're not 10 times engineer. I mean, at first when I read how many did he have? He had like 11 items. And I was like, this dude's making fun of 10 times engineers. And then I realized, oh, wait, he's not. He's actually taking this serious. So the problem with getting away from this really bad list of how you spot one, the 10 times engineers that I've worked with went through, there's different phases. One of them wanted their own time schedule.
Right.
And they got it because the idea was when they were available for a different amount of time, they would be at their utmost availability and valuable to the team. And in every instance that this was attempted to put this person with a team at their schedule, the rest of the team was either annoyed by it, because not so much because they wanted that same time. It's more of, we got to wait on this person now because they're not available. And we're all trying to get this work done on the days that this person is out because they aren't working the same schedule as us. So there's dependencies here that we can't even communicate about. So that was an annoyance. No one actually complained about this person working this set amount of time. It was strictly about, we just can't communicate. They're not even available in these other times. So that didn't work very well.
Right.
The other thing is, I inherited this person's code a number of times, and it always looked like they were experimenting on stuff versus actually building code for the rest of the team. And their problem with their solution to the problem was always written differently than the standard you would expect. And this is Ruby on Rails. It's like, I've never seen Ruby on Rails code written this way. They're doing their own thing. It solves a problem,
right?
But I have to maintain it, and now I'm holding the bag of this 10 times person's code that doesn't relate to anything else in our code base. And that was part of the isolation part. It was like, okay, we are writing everything with 3 people over here and 1 person on their own. And I didn't see the benefit to that tremendously.
Right.
On the flip side of that, I have a team of 3 people. We run into something we've never seen in terms of the code the problem we need to solve and how it's going to move onto the host that we're hosting it with. So we bring in a 10 times engineer who basically just takes the reins and just plows us through this problem within a week. And I'm like, this will take us 2 weeks to 3 weeks at the level of stuff we know and how much stuff we have to do. And that person, man, took us into the landing. And it wasn't bad code. It was great code. That person taught us some things. Wasn't a jerk. And was like, okay, this is exactly why we need this person's skills to be part of this team, even though we only get that person for a set amount of time. So was it beneficial to have a 10-time person there? Yes. But I guess the side effect is, when this person was on other teams for a long time, no one junior could work with them because the patience level that the 10 times person had for the junior was just inexistent. Like they were willing to teach other people that were experienced that could catch on. But if someone was at the very beginning, it's like, I ain't got time for this. And it's like, okay, that's not going to help anybody. Like you can't survive on a diet of only senior developers at a company. Like you have to have juniors coming on board at a lower rate and then work them up. That's how a software team exists over time, is the ability to grow a team and not just pay top dollar for all seniors. And so that 10 times person was extremely valuable on one hand, and then detrimental to the growing culture on the other. So, yeah, I mean, I guess from the standpoint of, I've seen both sides of the value and the side effects, I can't totally say that I'm going to bash the 10-time person of being a value, but I'm also, you have to know what you're getting into if you hire that type of personality.
And just the attitude is the wrong attitude to start with. So so we had April Wenzel on back when we started this thing. We had April Wenzel on to talk about compassionate coding, one of our first guests, and she gave a talk at South by Southwest last year, literally titled "Forget Hiring 10x Engineers, Build a 10x Team." And one of the quotes she pulled out for that presentation was, by Bruce Tolgan in Closing the Soft Skills Gap. He wrote, even if the computer programmer can write great code very fast, if that programmer cannot understand the needs and objectives of business owners or users, that programmer is going to write a lot of great code to nowhere. So that goes back to what you were saying about empathy.
Yeah.
That trait is also part of a good engineering team. Empathy is absolutely part of an engineering team. The second thing I'll add is, while I was at the conference this week, Malcolm Gladwell was one of the keynote speakers. And what he did was he had a talk or a podcast that he put out. His revisionist history podcast is out there. There's an episode in there about higher education, and this particular one was about donations. Do you donate to your top schools to further their causes, or do you donate to lesser schools with lesser endowments to raise them? And the argument he brought forward was the strong link versus weak link theory. So this is from a book called The Numbers Game: While Everything You Know About Soccer Is Wrong, by Chris Anderson and David Sally. So what the book goes into is, a lot of truisms and things about soccer that they applied statistics to. And one of the theories they brought up was that the idea of a weak link system versus a strong link system. A weak link system is like soccer. You're only as good as your weakest link. Your worst player is going to be the one that gives up the goal that decides the game, because goals are so precious in soccer. So that's a weak link system where you're weak. You're only as strong as your weakest link. Basketball, on the other hand, is more of a strong link system. If you've got LeBron James or Michael Jordan, you're going to go far. You're as strong as your strongest link.
Unless it's Carmelo Anthony, who is known to be score over win. That doesn't help.
Yes. No, and that's a great example, right? Is one of your 10x players is too worried about the stat line. So he actually said in his talk that software was a strong link system. He actually believes that. And that's where your statement that Google built their thing on 10x players and Amazon built their things on 10x players. That's a true statement. However, we talked about it afterwards as a company, and we're like, but we're not a strong link company. We are very much a weak link company. And I truly believe as a small company, you are weak link. You're only as good as your weakest. So bringing in a very strong person who overrides the personality of the company is just going to wreck everything, because it's not going to bring along everybody else that needs to help to grow that company. And so when that whole conversation on Twitter came out about 10x, it was about the same day that Gladwell was giving this talk, and I was like, oh, those two things fit perfectly. But it's also very apparent that it's not there's certainly sides to the argument. There's sides that say you have to have that 10x guy, and there's sides that say, no, that's the wrong approach. And I would even say those aren't two opposite sides. They're just different ways of looking at it. The side that's saying that's the wrong approach isn't saying 10x engineers are toxic, because that's too broad a statement. There are certainly some who are helpful. It's that 10x thinking is toxic, which is more the proper way of thinking about it.
If you were to say to me, you get a 10x engineer, or you get 5x with plus empathy, I'm taking the 5X plus empathy. Because really, someone who has empathy is going to be able to work with marketing, product, other people in the company, customers, users, all of that. And they're going to have superior tech skills over the 1X. But that's what I would aim for. I don't know what you call them, all-star. All-star in sports is a all-around great player that is better than the most of the league, but their all-star typically isn't. They're not going to be all about just scoring. They're going to be good about defense and scoring and working within the team structure.
Yeah.
So I'm looking always to work with exceptional engineers that have empathy to work with other people, to write code. And this is what I always tell my students: write your code for two people. The person that has to inherit your code and maintain it so that you can go on and do more, like better things or more cool things, and yourself when you get handed back the code you wrote 6 months ago. And you should definitely have empathy for the person that inherits your stuff, but you will kick yourself if you have to take it back and you are like, what the heck did I set up for myself? So I want to get those people that are 5X plus empathy way more than I want those 10X, and I got to deal with all the other crap that comes along with it.
Right.
Again, you can find 10Xers that work very well with other people, that have empathy. They just don't ever tell you about it. They typically are more humble, and they don't broadcast that they're 10X. And that's the harder part, is they are quiet. You're not going to find them bragging about themselves.
Guess what? Are they? Do they hate meetings any more than any other person?
Well,
no, they don't. Because why? Because they have empathy, right?
They hate it. Everyone hates excessive meetings.
Everyone hates meetings. Okay, everyone hates meetings. Even us managers, Randy.
Yeah.
Everyone hates meetings. And do they set their own time schedule? Again, no, because of empathy. They might prefer a time schedule, but who doesn't prefer their own time schedule? So it's very much, I completely agree.
Most 10X engineers are full stack. Okay, I get that. I'm full stack. And yes, it's very valuable to know the front end and back end, because I have empathy for what both sides of the team are going through. So thumbs up, I get that one.
I that of all of them, I almost disagree with that one the most.
Go ahead.
Because it's, yes, having a good full stack developer is nice, but there's a lot to be said with being really good at one part of that.
Oh yeah, there's value in that, but
because I just can't buy that that's a good categorization. Go on.
Well, if you're a founder hiring a few people,
yes,
like you have full stack people. You have full stack people on your team.
Yeah,
I mean, but you can only hire so many people.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I guess in that instance, you're right. In the context of being a startup, I'll allow that. I'll allow that argument.
Let's see. 10X engineers rarely look at help documentation of classes or methods. That is complete crap. Every 10X engineer I know looks at documentation. All of them.
But are they on classes or methods?
Yeah. I mean,
I'm picking because that's just a very detailed statement.
They know it in memory and can recall from memory. Yeah, but guess what? If you've memorized a version of the API and it changes, you're gonna have to look it up.
And knowing and thinking you know it is a fallacy because things change.
That one's just dumb. Like, I don't know. None of the 10X folks I know don't look at documentation to figure out what they're doing. That's just ridiculous. 10x engineers are poor mentors as they can't teach others on what to do or parcel the work. Okay, so that's probably what we've been talking about. They are also poor interviewers. Okay, I don't know about that. But I will say that if you're going to hire a 10 times engineer in this mode, hire them as a consultant. Hand them projects isolated from the team then.
Yeah.
Like I don't know that you need them full time. 10x engineers don't hack things. They write quality code. That's BS. I've gotten plenty of 10 times code handed to me to maintain, and I'm like, they hacked this together. I don't care. They did it fast and they solved the problem. They were under constraints that I'm not going to criticize them on, but it wasn't like I was handed this beautiful code that worked as well as they thought it did. 10x engineers rarely job hunt or move out of the company. But yeah, that's BS too.
That sounds completely counterintuitive.
Yeah. They're mercenaries in that sense. They get tired of the companies they work with.
They get tired of the problem.
Yeah.
Because they've solved it. They want to move on to the next problem.
And as a company grows, you get more people problems involved. And yeah. So, yeah, I mean, obviously Twitter went after this dude's list with the fervor I've across like every group I've tracked.
Oh, yeah.
Even so that the baseball people I track, which now like I have this category of Twitter users that track baseball research because there's a lot of data involved in that. And even those people started talking about 10x engineers and how they can't work in baseball outfits because there's a lot of human elements that you have to know to really use the data correctly. And
right.
Even the baseball people are like, have you seen what's going on with this 10 times engineer thing? And they all laugh about how they'd never survive in their industry if they acted like that. So it's like, I think, and here's the other side of it. There's a lot of 10 times phonies.
Yep.
People that act like they're 10 times, treat other people and teams like they're 10 times. They're bright, but they are not actually that good at the end of the day with what they deliver. That's probably where the risk is that writing software is not just about writing software. That's why the 5 times plus empathy is so much more valuable than anything else in my mind.
So I want to collate everything that was in this tweet storm and tell all the developers out there that if you want to be paid like a 10x engineer, all you have to do is walk into the interview, completely blow the interview, tell them you hate meetings and that this is one of them and you just don't stand for them.
Mm-hmm.
And then tell them this was a bad time for you and they should have scheduled on your time. That sounds like a winning attitude to go into a job evaluation with.
Well, the thing is, this dude is part of a VC community, I guess, and they all talk to each other and hire the same ways.
Yeah.
What I like, what I thought is funny is if we rewind back to my interviews with people, I definitely interviewed with people that were 10 times engineers.
Yeah.
They got elevated to management roles, and they would tell me all these things that they expected out of their developers and stuff. And then I'm like, so why are you hiring right now? And they're like, well, I lost all of my developers. I'm rebuilding the team. And I was like, oh, really? Like,
there's a reason.
Yeah, totally a reason. And I basically was like, yeah, I'm not going to move forward with this because I knew exactly what I'd be joining. So 10 times engineers also think that they're good with people. Like that's the other side. They think they are good with people. And so that goes into the people I know, a few of them that are 10 times. They really do think that the way that they mentor people the way they talk to people, the way they teach is actually great. It's very effective. That people should conform to
Right.
how they teach and not the other way around. That people should
Right.
that they should teach. They should conform their learning to the way people are learning and how they onboard. And that's probably the most devastating part about a 10X is that if they're talking to a non-technical person, they will convey the idea that they are great with people when they
Right.
really are not. So that's probably the biggest risk.
Yeah, and you pointed out, you said this is Silicon Valley thinking,
Yeah.
and it really it's VC thinking. And I'll be a little bit more specific. It's VC thinking because at the end of the day, what are VCs after? VCs are after that one home run. They're willing to live with 10 to 20 complete bomb outs for that one home run.
Yeah.
That's the kind of scenario you want a 10X engineer in. If you want to only be successful 5% of the time, sure. You give me 20 companies with a 10X engineer, I'll make one of them work because I'll have found that one 10X engineer that also has empathy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then it works. So it's there's so I went through a period where I was really interested in VC thinking and all that, but I've so completely flipped that it just doesn't. Yeah, you want to go make your $1 billion company, go make your $1 billion company. I'm perfectly happy with my $1 million company.
Yep. And it's funny because I see someone like Yehuda Katz is replying. He's like, teams with these 10X engineers are toxic as hell. I've been on them. And then he goes into kind of supporting our statements. But I'm like, I've met Yehuda and I used a lot of the stuff he built. Yehuda is like 20 times, but not with any of the negative traits. He is someone that is brilliant, can work with others, is like has built software for people that does great things, and is part of the good side of. He's a part of the positive side of software culture. So
Right.
10 times people exist that are actually great at everything, and he's one of them. And I've worked with them. Like there's people that I would hire in a heartbeat if I had a budget and a need, because I know they are exceptional on both the people and software side. And so if you want to say that 10 times is just a bad branding, is a brand for a bad developer that thinks too highly of themselves, and okay, sure, that's what we'll put it at. But I've worked with people that are very, very productive and can work well with others, and they exist,
Right?
And they are valuable, and you should find them and hope to get them on your team. If they're smart, they won't cost, or if they're smart, they will cost a lot, but they're worth it.
Right.
But you're never going to, if you hire people based on antisocial behavior, which is what this person was basically saying you should look for.
Oh yeah.
You're going to get crap. You're going to hate yourself at the end of it. And then you're going to hire someone like me, and I'm going to have to tell you what's going to cost to fix the problems because a team can't work on the software this way. And that's what I've inherited those projects. And I would say that aspects of almost every project every company software that I've been on, a bigger company that's been around, let's say more than 5 years, had like a core of 2 to 3 developers that started everything from scratch. And then the team is constantly complaining about what those 2 to 3 people built. Right. And I can only say that I feel that I did the same thing with a startup I worked at. And every time I wrote the code, I thought about the fact that my team would have to inherit what I wrote, and someone else would have to inherit this. Am I building this in a way that makes sense for that phantom person? And I guarantee you, someone has said they did a get blame on the code and said, "Who the hell wrote this?" And then my name popped up, and they're like, "Screw that guy." I guarantee you, somebody has done that over there. But I hope, but I've heard that it's still running smoothly and not a lot of stress around maintenance. And that was a compliment that came around from someone that I can trust what they said. So I wrote the code in a way that I hoped it would be inherited in a way that was productive. And that's what I would hope, that if you're a founder, you're hiring someone that comes across as a superior engineer, that they're going to build you something that you can then hand off to your growing team in the same way. And that's what you're really aiming for as a founder, is to hire people that think about building software for the end user and for the development team that is going to inherit it. That's what you want.
Yeah, for sure.
Any other 10 times engineer experiences in your background?
No, I don't have any. I don't have any 10x statements to throw at this topic. I've brought everything I know.
So if you are listening to this episode and want to see what we're talking about, just do a search on Twitter for 10x, and you will get a slew of the threads that have been started, and the jokes. The memes are great. The puns are great. It's been quite a week for an industry that's still growing up. The fact that we still need compassionate coding as a whole paradigm, and the fact that the Twitter sphere is actually attacking these kind of antisocial behaviors, shows that our industry is still trying to find a way to integrate software in the mainstream employment market in a way. And I think it's good to do that. It's just, this is one of those things of people are getting fed up with people that act a certain way. And I think,
well, the good thing is that there is a strong pushback against this type of thinking for the most part. So it's the industry has learned for the most part, and it's just there are individuals within it that still have certain views. So.
All right. Anything else?
Nothing else.
Cool.
Back, just ready to relax at home. I don't have a lake to go out to, though. Maybe I'll travel. No, if I travel to you to relax, then I'm traveling. Never mind. I'm not coming to visit.
We're going to be in Denver in September.
We are.
So you're not coming out here in August.
No.
It's a good time to.
Maybe the week before. Maybe in September. I'll just come out to Kansas for a week, and then we'll just go straight to Denver.
We could. I'm really close to Denver now. I didn't realize it until I looked at the map. I was like, wait, Colorado's right next to us.
Yeah. All right. I think that's it for now.
All right, cool, man. Talk to you next week.
All right. See ya.
Thanks for listening to the CTO Think podcast. Show notes and previous episodes can be found on our website at ctothink.com. Reviews on Apple iTunes are always appreciated and help promote the show. Patreon contributions help us to produce episode transcripts, which allow people that are deaf or hard of hearing to access the show. If you have feedback, ideas, or want to be a guest, please email us at hello@ctothink.com. Show music is Dumpster Dive by Mark Wallach, licensed by premiumbeat.com. Voiceover work by meganvoices.com. You'll hear from us next week.